Our class today will start with us on our mats, inviting movement into the body, focusing on balance, starting to open up those hips and going a little bit deeper into the hamstrings. And then we'll finish up with some standing poses to work on balance, also invite a little bit of core into our practice. So wherever you're at, as always, I invite you just to be mindful of the energy that you're bringing to the mat today, of any injuries you may have, and to take a rest when you need to make these poses your own as it feels good for you today. So if you're ready to get started, I invite you to come to your mat and let's begin. We're going to start our practice today in our child's pose. So I invite you to have your knees hip distance apart or maybe a little bit greater. And whatever feels comfortable for you, just allow yourself first to sink back, let the sit bones sink back onto your heels. And just walk your hands out in front of you, feeling that nice lengthening of the spine. And just make this an easy child's pose. You know, maybe you want to have your arms along your side. Maybe you want to have your knees closer together. Whatever feels right for your body right now. And we'll just start by coming to our mat. Starting to bring our attention to the right here, right now. Starting to take some nice deep inhalations in through the nose. Feeling that rib cage expand on our thighs. And slow exhalation out. And just take this opportunity to commit to being present for your time on the mat. Part of our yoga practice is about finding mindfulness. And if you find your attention starting to wander, just gently bring it back to your breath and to your body, offering yourself grace wherever you're at. And I invite you to take this opportunity to set an intention for your practice today, if that feels good for you. And we'll just take a few slow, more deep breaths in and out at your own pace. And on our next inhale, we'll rise up to our tabletop position, having our knees under our hips, our shoulders are over our wrists. And just take this time just to really feel the mat below you. Dig into the mat with your hands. Feel all 4 points of balance. We'll begin with our cat-cow. So inhale, dropping that belly, looking up towards the sky. And exhale into our cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, look up. And exhale, curl that spine, gaze to your navel for our cat. One more time, inhale, looking up for cow. And exhaling into our cat. Returning to our neutral tabletop. Walking those hands in front of us for our puppy dog pose. So hips stay over your knees. And you start to drop that sternum down towards your mat. Reaching with your hands towards the top of in front of you. Feeling that opening in the upper shoulders. Let me just take a breath here. And now as we exhale, we're going to drop those hips down for our puppy dog pose. So just have your elbows on the mat, bringing that pelvis down. Inhale, gaze comes up. And then on the exhale, just bring your forehead a little bit closer to the mat and tuck those elbows along your side. And we're going to invite just some movement and heat into the upper back as we lift those hands off the mat, supporting ourselves with our back. And exhale, release those hands, pushing ourselves back into our puppy dog pose. From puppy dog pose, we'll walk those hands back up into tabletop. And from here, we're just going to push ourselves into our high plank. So, or I guess gently find our high plank. So let's just extend those legs out in front of us, holding your high plank, engaging your core. And the next activity or the next sequence we're going to do, we will find some lengthening of the hamstrings while also engaging the core. So you're going to drop that right knee down to the mat, and you can really feel your core support you as you do that. And then let's gently find length in that left hamstring. So maybe just put a little bit of pressure into that heel, keeping your weight balanced in your hands. Now right knee comes up and left knee drops down to the mat. And now lengthening along the back of that right leg. Left knee comes up, right knee comes down, and lengthen. Right knee comes up, engaging your core, dropping that left knee, and lengthening along the right hamstring now. Now we'll bring that left knee off, returning to our high plank and pushing back into our downward facing dog. Feeling the weight of your hands in the mat, feeling your fingers engaged, and just taking a few nice big deep knee bends in your downward facing dog, inviting movement, finding your breath. Just take this nice and slow and make this your own. This is about really just starting to awaken the body. And now bring your heels up. And from here, we're going to find our three-legged dog. So right leg floats up behind us. And we're going to bring the right foot forward to the top of the mat into our lizard pose. So the outside of the right foot is just lateral, or it's right along the edge of the mat. And just take a moment first just to find your lizard pose. We're not going to do too much external rotation with this knee right now. And from here, we'll invite some movement into our lizard pose. So this is just about starting to waken up the body, maybe creating a little bit of heat and just finding some playfulness. So just watch me do this first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that right foot, I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to bring it over the left leg and back. Just bending that left knee, and then inhale, coming forward back to our lizard pose. So we'll do this 5 times. So pushing off in that right foot, bringing the right leg back and forward for 5, 4, right leg comes back for 3, and bring it up. 2, and 1. Now bring your right foot back up to your lizard pose and just maybe rock back and forth on that left heel, feeling that lengthening in front of the left hip flexor. And then let's return to stillness and drop that left knee onto the mat. And we're going to do kind of a little new variation here. I'm going to have you just walk your right foot out and bring it so it's kind of just directly out to your right side. And have the inside of your right foot just lying against the floor. This really allows us to start to target that inner right groin. And just make sure you're not letting that left hip collapse. Left hip is strong and directly over the left knee. We'll do a kind of modified thread the needle, finding some active movement. So inhale now, right arm comes up towards the sky. And you're going to exhale and bring it underneath you, but you're not going to drop your right shoulder towards the mat. Just looking over to your left side. And inhale, arm comes up, finding this rotation in the torso and the rib cage. And exhale, lower underneath yourself. Inhale, look up. Exhale, lower. We'll do this 2 more times. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Really starting to waken up that torso. Find movement in the spine. Inhale, looking up. And exhale. 1 more time. Bringing that right hand underneath our body. And now on our next inhale, right hand comes back to the mat. We're going to keep that right foot out to the side. And we'll continue to just target a little bit that right inner groin as we exhale and just start to push back, almost as if you're pushing back into a child's pose, but your right leg is out in front of you. And inhale, lift. Finding your breath, exhale, pushing back. And really almost exaggerate your breathing as you inhale, come up. Really now feeling that nice stretch on the inner right groin. Exhale, lower. Inhale. Coming forward. Exhale. Pushing back. And just staying here for a moment in this modified child's pose. Just staying here for a breath. And inhale, we'll come back up, finding our weight in our hands, and we're going to do a controlled movement here where you're going to engage your core, and we're going to just start to bring that right leg behind us. You can just kind of drag it along the floor. If it's possible, lift it off the floor and bring it back behind you into a 3-legged tabletop. And once you find that right leg behind you, just engaging your glute here on that right leg, engaging your core. Let's find our balancing tabletop with our left arm floating out in front of us. Just holding that balancing tabletop, not letting your left hip collapse, internally rotating that right thigh. Inviting now more movement into our core. As we exhale, bringing that left elbow to right knee. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, crunch. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, crunch. Expand. Crunch. Inhale, lengthen, and holding our balancing tabletop just for another moment. Now left hand comes back to the mat, right knee follows, and we'll push ourselves back into our child's pose. Having your hands out in front of you now in your child's pose, having it a little bit more active as we walk those fingers maybe a little bit further up to the top of the mat. And just take a breath. We've already started to create some heat in the body. We're starting to warm up our muscles and maybe just warming up the body. Inhaling, coming back up into our tabletop position. Now let's just curl those toes underneath us. And creating a little more heat in the core, we're just going to lift the knees about an inch off the mat and using that core to stabilize us here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and push back up into our downward facing dog. Taking again a few more nice deep knee bends. Heels come together, gently lower down, keeping a nice bend in the knees if that feels good, if that's what your body's asking for. You don't want to overstretch those hamstrings when they're not ready for it, as that can also lead to injury. And now inhale, left leg floats up for our 3-legged dog. And exhale into our lizard pose. Left foot along the edge of the outside of the left mat. And just taking a moment just to settle into our lizard pose here, feeling the toes of your right foot grounded, feeling the weight on the outside of that left foot. From here, again, we'll just invite some active movement into our lizard pose, a little bit of a variation. We're going to lift that left foot off the mat and bring it over and behind the right leg. And then left foot comes forward. Doing this at your own pace for 4 times. 3. Left foot forward for 2. And one more time, just bring that left foot back into your lizard pose. Just finding a little bit of movement in our lizard pose as we rock back and forth on that right heel, allowing ourselves now to feel that amazing lengthening on the front of the right hip. And now coming to stillness, dropping that right knee down. And just bring now the left foot outside or along, I guess, on the outside of the left mat. And just bring it however it works best for you to get there. It's always a little awkward either way. But right hip now is over that right knee. Left leg, you can't see it on me now, but is outside to the outside of the left mat like we had it before. Finding now our modified thread the needle. Left arm is going to float up to the ceiling. Gaze follows. I guess to the sky. Exhale now. Left shoulder comes towards the mat, but does not come onto the mat. Inhale, look up. Exhale, lower. Inhale, open. Feeling now that movement and opening of the left pelvis. Exhale, lower. Inhale, one more time, gaze up towards the sky. And exhale, lowering that shoulder down, but staying active and keeping it off the mat. And then we'll just open up one more time, left hand up towards the sky. Exhale, releasing the left hand back to the mat. Again, feel your hands equally weighted. My tendency is to collapse into this right hip. Let's just kind of tuck it in a little bit. So we're left hip is directly over that right knee. Kind of a nice engagement. And feeling now the inside of your left foot on the floor, on the ground. We're going to do a modified child's pose as we push back, bringing that right sit bone back to the right heel. And inhale, come up. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower, and just staying here for a moment. Walking our fingers in front of us, now feeling that lengthening on the inside of the left leg on the inner groin. Inhale, coming back up. And now again, You can get your left leg behind you however you want. You can just kind of drag it along the floor, but also maybe try to see if you can engage that core and start to lift that left leg off the mat, and with control using your glutes, your lateral glutes, left leg comes behind you into our three-legged tabletop. Again, not collapsing this right hip. Tuck the right hip in. Engage the glutes of that left leg. Engage your core. And when you're ready, we're going to bring that right arm out in front of us for balancing tabletop. Just finding stillness in this pose. Reaching your right fingers to the top of the mat. And now we'll crunch as we bring that right elbow to left knee. Inhale, extend. Exhale, crunch. Inhale, expansion. Exhale, crunch. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale. And inhale back to our balancing tabletop, holding just for another moment. Now the right hand only is going to come down, and you're going to tuck those right toes. We're going to find our way eventually to our pigeon pose here. So just lift that right knee off the mat, and with control and intention and stability, bring your left knee to your left thumb. And keeping those hips square, walk your right leg behind you, and we'll be in a full pigeon pose first. So heart center is lifted. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, we'll lower down into our sleeping pigeon. And you might just come down onto your elbows. Maybe you'll cross your arms in front of you, whatever kind of feels right for you in your sleeping pigeon pose today, and where you can actually start to soften. So if you're in a position that's not feeling like you can find any release, find something that's a little bit more comfortable for you. Another option is just to have your right knee kind of out to the side, and you can take a little bit of pressure off that right knee. You'll still feel that lengthening on the outer left glute, wherever you're at. So let's just stay here, finding a moment of quiet, maybe returning to our intention, checking in with ourselves. Noticing if your forehead is tight, or is that an opportunity to maybe release the muscles of the forehead, or maybe the jaw. Maybe the shoulders are starting to soften. Just feeling how wonderful it is just to kind of surrender ourselves to this pose. And now when you're ready, we're going to inhale, coming back up. And we're going to swing this right hip around. So you're going to kind of bring that right foot and you're going to plant it on the outside. Let me kind of face the camera for a second. I'll face the camera for this. You can stay, if you're facing the top of your mat, just stay like that. But I'm going to face you for a moment so you can all see me. So right leg can be crossed over the left, and you can just grasp the front of your right calf as you pull that right knee towards you. Another option, if you want to go a little bit deeper, and if it feels okay, just drop that right knee directly over the left for a cow face pose, and you can grasp the outside of your feet and gently bring those heels into your hips. And just do whatever feels good for you right now. Another option, if you even want to take this a step further, if you're in your cow face pose, you can start to walk your hands in front of you, lowering your forehead down towards the ground. This will even target more that inner or that outer right glute. Wherever you're at, whichever modification you take, you will feel the benefits of this pose in terms of finding length in the outside of the right leg and those glute muscles. If you're lower down to the mat, let's lift that heart center. Coming back up, and we're going to unwind a little bit as we extend that left leg out in front of us. Right knee is going to drop directly over the left. And take your hands and just put them under that left knee. You can make double fists if you want to have more of a bend in the left knee. You can have your palms on top of each other. And wherever you land in this pose, we're going to start to inhale and lengthen the spine, and then just start to fold at the hips coming down. And again, the more of a bend you have in your knee, the less strain you're going to put on that hamstring. But we're going to gently start to lower down. Just finding now length behind that left leg, keeping that left foot flexed. And then inhale. Let's come back up, and I'm going to return to the top of my mat. So I'm just going to stay in this position. You stay wherever you're at. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to now unwind and swing that left leg behind us as we move into our pigeon pose on the other side. So right knee to right thumb. Just make your adjustments. And again, if you are feeling too much tension on that right knee, bring that left leg out to the side of the mat for a modified pigeon pose. So hips are square. Let's just first find our balance and our kind of centering in this asana. And inhale, we'll lift that heart center up. And exhale, just find your way down to your child's pose. Or I'm sorry, your sleeping pigeon pose. Starting to target now the outside of the right hip, right glute in our pigeon pose on this side. Relaxing the muscles, finding where can you release on the exhale? Where are you holding on to tension? What can you let go of, maybe physically and mentally, as you settle into this asana and you find your breath? Committing to mindfulness. Inhaling, coming back up. And we're going to repeat the sequence we did on the other side. You all know what to do as we now swing that left leg around, planting now the left leg on the outside of the right. And you can choose now your own adventure in this pose. Maybe I will face the camera again. Again, you can stay here, or you can drop that left knee over the right, bringing those heels along the hips. And if you'd like to go ahead and lower down, please do so. I'm just going to come forward just a little bit. Again, whichever modification you choose, you will feel now that lengthening the outside of the left hip. Just noticing your breath. I wonder can you all hear the birds in the video? I'm not sure if that's actually picking up with a microphone, but the birds are singing away this morning. I'll be happy to have it a little bit cooler and drier. And let's come back up if you have lowered down. And we're going to unwind. I'm now going to actually face the top of the mat again. You all stay where you're at. Right leg extends, bringing those hands underneath that right knee, keeping the left knee above the right. And inhale, lengthen. And just exhale, start to just slowly lower down. Going just as much as feels comfortable. If it starts to feel too much behind that right hamstring, just put more of a bend in the knee. Maybe make double fists. Keeping that right foot flexed. Keeping the shoulders soft, relaxing those shoulders, keeping them away from the ears, keeping your jaw soft, keeping your breath soft. And let's release now as we come up. And we're going to just go ahead, let's swing those legs around, and let's just push back into our child's pose one more time. Forehead down to the mat, fingers in front of you. Allow your sit bones to sink back towards those heels as you create length in the spine, as you open up and find space in the upper shoulders. And inhale, coming up to our tabletop pose, tucking those toes now, pushing back into downward facing dog. Noticing maybe how your downward facing dog is starting to feel different for you. We've done a lot of work in kind of lengthening the hamstrings this morning. So you might feel that downward facing dog has more space for you right now. And then heels to center. Gaze up towards the top of the mat, and we'll just take a few nice big steps, bringing our feet up to meet our hands, keeping a micro bend in the knees, and we'll just find our dangling, just kind of our ragdoll pose. So having your forearms crossed over each other, head is nice and heavy, neck is nice and long, feeling your feet grounded, feeling your weight in your heels, being really conscious of the mat underneath you as you rock back and forth. Taking a few deep breaths here. Exhaling. And now we'll come to center. And we're going to drop our hands down to the mat. Inhaling, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. A little bit of bend in the knees here. Keep your knees bent as we start to roll up vertebrae by vertebrae, and just take this as slow as you can. See how slow you can come up. Just feeling your spine start to find length as we make our way up to our mountaintop pose, dropping those shoulders behind us. And inhale, arms come up towards the sky. Exhale, hands to heart center. Just keeping our hands at our heart center for a moment, shifting our weight back to our heels intentionally. And notice as you do that, you just start to kind of engage those glutes a little bit more. Heart center is up and open to the world. Taking a breath. Exhale, releasing the hands. Inhale, arms come back up, gaze follows. Exhale, hands to heart center, coming all the way through to our forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, planting the hands on the mat, stepping back into our high plank. And exhale, chaturanga. You can lower directly or knees, chest as you come down. Inhale, upward facing dog. Thighs are off the mat, but your glutes are engaged to protect your lumbar spine. And exhale, now pushing back into our downward facing dog. Taking a breath in. Exhale, slow release. Inhale, look up towards your hands. You can step or hop up to the front of your mat. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lifting, coming up to our mountain pose. And inhale, arms come directly up. As we exhale, weight in our heels, feeling that weight of the heels, engaging those glutes, coming into our chair pose. Step back a little bit so I'm a little more in the center of the camera. So really kind of intentionally just feel your heels support you. Feel those glutes engaged in your chair pose. As you feel that seat behind you support you. And now exhale, hands to heart center. And we'll find our revolved chair pose as our left elbow comes to our right knee, feeling that rotation in the torso. Pushing our weight into our hands. Maybe closing your eyes for a moment. Staying equally grounded in our heels here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to transfer our weight into that right leg. And the goal is we'll find our way to our tree pose. So weight into the right leg. Keeping your hands at your heart center. Start to extend that right leg coming up. Lifting, I'm going to face the camera. Lifting that left foot off the mat. And really keeping this right hip engaged. Don't allow it to kind of collapse out. Just tuck it in, engage that right glute, feel your right heel grounded as you start to float that left foot along the inside of the right leg. Finding external rotation in the left hip. You can just keep your foot right here, or you can walk it up and tucking it in along the thigh, or you can actually just keep it along the ground, a little bit your toes on the mat if that feels better. Just find your point of focus that's going to support you in your tree pose today. Perhaps you want to expand your tree if that feels fun, if that's your adventure you want. Just growing your tree, keeping your right leg, the trunk of the tree, strong, supporting you. And if you've grown your tree, returning your hands to heart center. And we're going to invite a little bit more of a challenge here now as we bring that left heel over the right knee and we sink back into our half chair pose. Keeping your weight in that right heel. It's going to keep you more balanced. Keeping your left foot flexed, feeling now that rotation or that openness in the left hip, and let's sink down into our half chair. Holding. You're going to feel the burning here, but just keep holding. You have this. And exhale, coming up, releasing. And let's just shake it out. Just do the wiggles here. Just shake your legs out. Shake your hands. Maybe move your shoulders. Just kind of do a nice release of everything. And we're going to repeat our balancing sequence on the other side now. So I'm going to face the mat again. And we'll find our mountain pose. Feel our weight in our heels. Inhale, arms come up to the ceiling or the sky. I keep thinking I'm inside. Exhale, chair pose, weight in our heels. Glutes activated, firing to support us. Squeeze those glute muscles and really push your weight into your heels. You'll really find that stability in your chair pose. Exhale, hands to heart center. And now dropping that right elbow to your left knee, we'll find a revolved chair pose. Really think about bringing that right, outside of that right chest wall, down towards the mat. Finding flexibility in the spine, weight in your palms. And from here now we'll transition our weight to our left foot. And we'll come up, extending that left leg. And then start to lift that right foot off the mat, opening up that right hip into our tree pose. Tucking that left hip in if it's kind of collapsing out to the side. Engaging those muscles again of the glutes. It's all about the glutes. They're a powerhouse. And if you'd like to grow your tree, please do so. keep my hands at heart center right now. And also just think about engaging your core in your tree pose. Your core and your glutes are really supporting you here. And if you're in your tree pose, hands back to heart center. Right ankle over left knee. Now sinking back into our modified chair. Keeping the weight in that left heel. Again, not collapsing that left hip out. Staying kind of centered in our pelvis. Good job. Exhale, release. And we're just going to come directly into a forward fold. And just letting our heads be heavy. Our neck is long. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, hands come to the mat now, stepping into our plank pose. And bringing our elbows down for our elbow plank. Keeping our shoulders directly over our elbows. Engaging that core, engaging your glute muscles again. I keep saying that, but it really is always so important. And from here, we'll just do a little bit of more core activating sequence here as we're going to lift those hips up into almost a modified downward facing dog. Weight in your elbows. Inhale, forward. Exhale, lift. Inhale, forward for 9. Lift for 8. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, lift. Inhale, come forward. Lift for 6. Forward. 5. 4. 3. 2. This is great for those lower abdominal muscles. 1. Coming back to our elbow plank and just holding for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We're almost there for 3, 2, 1. Phew. All right, let's drop that belly down and provide a little bit of a counter pose to the core activation as we inhale into our baby cobra. And now exhaling, bringing our forehead down towards our hands or across the arms. And just taking a moment just to kind of start to settle into the end of our practice. Think about starting to slow your heart rate and your breath down. Before we find our way to our Shavasana, we're going to just do a little bit of lengthening and stretching of those quadricep muscles. They often tend to get neglected. So you're going to raise your forehead off the mat just a little bit. You're going to swing that right arm around to grab your right foot, if that's possible, or if not, you can just get as close as you can. If you've grabbed your right foot, lower your forehead back down to your hands and push that front of that right hip into the mat. So before you do anything else, really engage with the mat with that front of that right hip. And then if it feels good, start to bring that the right heel to your right sit bone. Feeling that nice elongation in front of the right thigh, the right quadricep muscle. And exhale, releasing the right hand. Now repeating on the other side, bringing the left hand around to grab the left foot. Dropping the forehead to the hand. And before we do anything else, we make contact with the front of our left hip with the mat, grounding ourselves, and then we gently start to bring that left heel to the left sit bone. Exhale, release, dropping that left foot down. And from here, we're going to roll onto our backs, coming to the close of our time together today for our final resting pose of our practice, our Shavasana. So if you need to do anything before we come to the close of our practice, if you need to shut the door or just maybe get a drink of water, or if there's one final pose that you just really need to do to complete your practice today, I invite you to take this opportunity. You can also modify Shavasana by maybe having your legs up the wall. You could be in a Supta Baddha Konasana, butterfly pose with your feet together, your knees out to the side. There's no one way of doing Shavasana. It's about finding a place where you can rest and feel centered and grounded, and where your muscles aren't working, where your muscles are in a place of comfort and support. I'm going to be on my back today with my toes externally rotated, my palms facing up, shoulders are tucked behind me, my forehead and jaw starts to find some softness. And just doing a body scan, just bringing love and acceptance to our body and our minds as we scan up from the forehead, finding softness in the jaw, release in the shoulders, and just scanning all the way down through our heart center and our core and our pelvis into our fifth chakra. And just taking this moment and this opportunity to make your Shavasana your own, to find stillness and gentleness. You're welcome to stay in your Shavasana longer if that's what you're needing right now and you have the time. If you're ready to get on with your day and come to the close of your practice, let's just start to invite some movement into our hands and our feet and just allow our head just to move back and forth. And then we'll roll onto your left or your right side into our fetal position. Just taking one final breath in here on the mat, lying on the mat. And exhale, now pushing up into our seated easy pose, legs crossed in front of us, wrists resting on our knees, and just maybe moving those shoulders, just adjusting your sit bones. Feeling that energy of your body. Maybe closing your eyes for a moment. And inhale. Now let's bring those arms back up to the sky. And big exhale, hands to heart center. Wherever you're at in your summer today, I hope that you enjoyed this practice. And I look forward to our next session together. And I wish you love and adventures and peace during this time. Thank you again for your presence. Namaste.